Hi, this is Dr. Justin Marchegiani here, and today's talk is going to be on dairy, the truth about dairy. I see many patients that have autoimmune conditions that are sensitive to dairy, sensitive to gluten and other inflammatory compounds. Now, dairy for some people can be good. Most of the dairy consumed today is actually in a denatured form. So we're going to break down what the sources of dairy that we're seeing today, primarily. We're going to talk about the byproducts. When we break dairy down to its smaller constituents, what we actually have there. We're going to talk about the compounds that are beneficial and the compounds that are potentially more toxic or more inflammatory. So again, essentially dairy comes from a cow. That's really important. I have a lot of patients that may think eggs or chicken eggs come from a cow, but eggs come from chicken. So that's one of the key things I want to put out there first. So eggs are not dairy. So again, what are the constituents of dairy? So we have butter. Butter is really good. Now we can get butter from grass-fed cows or from grain or corn-fed cows. Butter is really important because in butter we primarily have the fat components, the fat constituents of dairy. We'll talk about that below. The fat tends to be more anti-inflammatory. We have less lactose and less casein, and we'll talk about that. Those are more inflammatory compounds. So butter tends to be a pretty good dairy source for most people. I'm going to put a check off on that, and ideally grass-fed butter tends to be pretty good. Yogurt. Yogurt, basically you have a dairy product, and you have some cultures, some bacteria cultures. The bacteria cultures go in there, they eat up the lactose or the milk sugar, and they spit all this good bacteria and good B vitamins and good nutrients back into the yogurt. If we're dealing with good, non-homogenized, non-pasteurized yogurt, then we're going to have really good bacteria. We're going to have less lactose in there, so people tend to have less issues with yogurt. I personally recommend for all of these, if you're autoimmune, to definitely go off dairy for at least 30 to 60 days. In general, my recommendation is a 30-day diet at a minimum, cutting all dairy, all grains, all legumes out, and then slowly introducing dairy back, trying to use these healthier sources first, the butter and potentially some yogurt without all the refined sugar and junk in it, and see how you respond. Again, milk. Milk used to be a really great product, right? Back in the 1910s, 1920s, we had issues with milk because we didn't have the refrigeration we have today. So people developed diseases such as tuberculosis, and that kind of spawned on this whole pasteurization craze that we have today. Now, if you ask me personally from a business standpoint, the reason why milk today is pasteurized is because it has a shelf life of a month, where if you keep it raw, again, the shelf life is about a week, and then it turns into other actual edible compounds where pasteurized milk after that month goes bad. But again, you don't quite get the shelf life, and you don't have the ability to ship it all around the world. And you have to actually use healthy cows to make it. So milk I'm not a big fan of unless it's grass-fed organic and higher quality. Claravale makes a really good grass-fed milk. Organic Pastures. There's also some debate of A1 or A2 cows. That'd be for another video. But again, good grass-fed. Just know your farmer, know the cows. Are they given antibiotics or drugs? And are they eating good quality grass? Investigate that first. Cream. Cream's great because it's typically just the fat portion, the butter fat portion of the dairy product. Fat tends to be very innocuous. It tends to be the protein molecules that our body reacts to, not necessarily to the fat. Again, our antibodies that we produce from our immune system, they're actually protein-based. So they can attack other proteins for the most part, and or antigens or foreign compounds in our bloodstream. But proteins tend to be the problem. Ghee. Ghee is excellent. So when we take butter and we heat it up, we get the casein part of the butter coming up, and we have the whey part, and we're able to suck off just the butter fat. So ghee actually tends to be very good. If you're sick or very dairy resistant, one of the first things I would recommend adding back in would be ghee. Ghee would be the first thing. If you can tolerate ghee, the next thing I would add back in would be some high quality grass-fed cream. And then the third thing that I think you could add in would be butter. These tend to be the safest dairy products out of everything, in my opinion. Ghee, butter, and cream. The next thing you'd want to do is a really high quality yogurt source, and the very last would be milk, and that order tends to be the best. So these are our dairy products up top. Now let's talk about what these constituents are made of here. So we have probiotics. These are beneficial bacteria, especially in the yogurt. The beneficial bacteria is going to be eating up the lactose over here. Lactose is sugar. This tends to be a problem. People tend to be lactose intolerant. All that word intolerant means is an inability to break it down. It ferments, it rots in the gut. It can create bacterial overgrowth and gassing and bloatiness. So probiotics are a good thing. You're mainly going to only see probiotics in good quality raw dairy sources. The pasteurization process will pretty much destroy all of your probiotics. Butterfat. So butterfat's going to obviously be in butter. Butterfat, or butyric acid, is a 4-carbon saturated fatty acid. I mean, the whole phase with resistant starch these days is just giving certain starches that allow the bacteria in your gut to make or ferment its own butterfat, but we can also get it in high quality dairy products. Butterfat is a plus. It's very, very good. It's good for your colon. It's also associated with great gastrointestinal health. That's why this whole thing with resistant starch. But with butter, you have, in my opinion, less gas consuming it. Casein protein. This tends to be a hyperallergenic protein that comes from dairy. Again, casein also has this sense of molecular mimicry where the protein, the surface proteins in the body, tend to also be very similar to the surface proteins of gluten. So a lot of my patients will have issues with casein. Not to mention, if we are unable to break down casein properly, we tend to have these caseomorphine-like compounds hanging around our body. Same thing with gluten too, but that'd be a separate video. With gluten, it's gluteomorphines. So with casein, we have caseomorphines. These compounds actually fit in the same receptor site as Vicodin, heroin, opiate receptors in the brain. So again, very addicting if you're having a hard time cutting off dairy. This is why you're having a hard time cutting off dairy, because of this caseomorphine-like effect. Whey protein's excellent. Now, for instance, in the China study that T. Colin Campbell talks about, he talks about whey protein and casein protein, but primarily he does the research on injecting rats with casein protein. The only problem is, in dairy, you're also going to have whey protein as well, and whey is actually anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer, while casein is pro-cancer and pro-inflammatory. So if you take out this compound, well, obviously we're going to have an issue, and not to mention, in life, you never find casein by itself, so it doesn't really stand up to the real-world test, if you will. But again, whey protein is an awesome source of glutathione, a lot of good sulfur-based amino acids, anti-inflammatory, great source of excellent protein. And again, if you can tolerate dairy, for the most part, whey is going to be about 99% lactose-free and about 99% casein-free as well. Get it from grass-fed cows. You'll have a great effect with it. I love whey protein. I rotate it with pea protein as well. Lactose, we kind of already reiterated, that's the sugar in dairy, and a lot of people have a hard time breaking it down and can get very gassy and kind of promote a dysbiosis or increase in bad bacteria in the gut. CLA is conjugated linoleic acid. It's a certain fat that comes in dairy. It's really good. Our mitochondria love it. It improves our body's ability to create energy. Very good. A lot of bodybuilders use it to create energy. That also shows to decrease fat mass. So eating fat helps your body burn fat. Big thing in the bodybuilding industry. You can get good quality CLA in grass-fed butter, but it's also a constituent in dairy. It's another great fat. So recapping here, in dairy we have two kinds of fat. We have butyric acid or butterfat, and we also have a CLA fat, and we do have some omega-3s in there as well. So 2 to 3 kinds of fats minimum. We also have two proteins, casein and whey. Casein tends to be the more inflammatory or the worse one. Whey tends to be better. Again, our sugar is going to be the lactose, and our probiotics are going to be in there as well, especially if it's good quality raw dairy. Hope this video was helpful, kind of expelled some of the myths about dairy, kind of broke down what the good and what the bad is and how to individualize your dairy consumption for you and for your health needs. For more information, check below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks. Have a great day.